Patrick Mahomes is basically God playing quarterback.
Chiefs Kingdom
Live.
Come on at it. What's hot? Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni.
Yeah, when it's grim, be the Grim Reaper and go get it.
It's Mahomes' house. And it is good. Woo! Arrowhead man.
The Lombardi Trophy has a red and gold reflection.
You gotta fight for your right to party.
Woo! Let's go. Howdy, Chiefs Kingdom. It's Wednesday. It's 8 o'clock. It's Chiefs Kingdom Live. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, if you wouldn't mind while you're here, click or tap that like, click or tap that subscribe, tell a friend, tell a family member, tell some Chiefs fans, help spread the word. We'd sure appreciate it. Got a good show lined up for y'all tonight. Had to make a location change here.
Holy shit, where'd you come from?
Because I just got here. Having some technical difficulties with the phone there. So I got a good show. We got some Chiefs draft picks to talk about. We got a Travis Kelce fanboy segment here and talk about his contract extension, the GOAT getting paid like the GOAT, maybe a new Arrowhead Stadium, some crazy developments and news and renderings here in the last 24 hours about possibly a new Arrowhead Stadium over on the Kansas side of the state line. So before we get into things, Bo, good to have you back, man. Hope you and the family are doing well. How are you, man?
Doing good, man. It's been a hectic past month, to tell you the least, man. Like from moving and just issues dealing with personal stuff. But good to get some time. See you guys. It's been a minute, so I'm glad we're just here talking some Chiefs. Much needed. Good to see everybody in the chat. It's been a minute. John C, Maria, Big Doug, everybody that's there. Good seeing y'all. But yeah, let's get into this. I'm excited.
Nick, how are you?
Oh, well, I mean, my internet's working in my house, so.
The problem's not the internet. The problem is I have an iPhone, and if there's a company that lives more off of their reputation than Apple these days, it's out like it's a shit product, and people still buy it. I mean, every iPhone I've gotten, the last 4 or 5 iterations of the iPhone works worse and worse and worse. I had literally less problems with my iPhone 3 than any of these other pieces of shit that they put out here recently, but we're gonna let that go until another time here when we do our Tech Kingdom Live podcast.
Yeah, that brings us to our first sponsor of the show.
Yeah,
Apple. No.
Yeah, if you're watching from Apple, get your shit together. What are we gonna get into first here? Do we want to talk about the draft? Do we want to talk about Travis Kelce? What do you guys want to talk about, Bo?
You're on mute, Bo.
Said, yeah, I think a draft happened between the last time we talked, so I think we should get into that a little bit. We made some pretty interesting moves. Not surprising, but interesting.
Yeah, probably the most surprising, or although I don't know if it was surprising that the Chiefs traded up to get a wide receiver. The defense was the strength of the team last year. They were lacking in production from the wide receiver spot there with Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and MVS really just not quite getting it done last year. Luckily, Rashee Rice stepped up, especially like the last third of the season there, the second half of the season, and became the man. But so you knew wide receiver was a position of need. They would be looking to fill that. It's tough to get a top wide receiver guy there at 32, but they traded up, which maybe wasn't a surprise, but who they traded with was maybe a surprise.
With the internet on fire.
The Buffalo Bills trade with the Chiefs so the Chiefs can move up and get Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas. Everybody, I'm sure, is aware that he set the record for fastest 40-yard dash at the combine by a wide receiver. I want to say it was a 4.21, right around there, sir? 4.2?
Yeah, I think so.
Blazing speed. The more you watching the guy highlights, though, and read people talking about him, he's got a pretty good route tree, and he can move and kind of stop and cut. Looks kind of like, I'm not going to say he's the cheetah or compare him to say he's going to be the next Tyreek Hill, but he can be running full speed and change direction and kind of come to a stop there real quick, kind of similar to Tyreek Hill's skill set. So, Bo, how are you feeling about the Chiefs' first round pick?
I was with everybody else. I was really surprised when they announced the trade at 28 in Buffalo. They traded the trades in or trades up, right? And they're trading with Kansas City. I mean, I was just like, huh? Like, isn't this team trying to compete with us for the Super Bowl, and now they're trading with us? Did they not learn their lesson last time they traded with us when we got a little guy by the name of Patrick Mahomes from? Like, it was just a shock. That move was a shock. But trading up for a receiver, I mean, that was kind of the buzz of the internet. That wasn't too much of a surprise on this end for me. But getting that good of a receiver that late in the first round was actually a surprise for me. I'm really stoked about Xavier Worthy being on this team. I mean, it was a big elephant in the room last year. Everybody was talking about, like, as you mentioned, the lack of production from the receiving corps, specifically from drops to just terrible games and like a real lack of accountability from that position group. So it was really nice to see them go get this guy who is familiar with big time football. I mean, I don't know if anybody's been to that Austin stadium, but that stadium holds 100,000 plus people. I mean, he's used to big stages and making big plays in big stages. So I'm just hoping that will translate well into the NFL.
Yeah. Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I was surprised as well when we were watching it live. I was over at his house and we saw the Chiefs trade graphic. Chiefs are on the clock pop up, and then it went to commercial. I was like, the graphic dude must have fucked up, like
Right.
there's no way the Bills traded with the Chiefs. And sure enough, I mean, it was the Chiefs. They drafted Worthy. I was a little underwhelmed with the pick at first, right? Just because like he's kind of a smallish guy, and we've been trying to chase that Tyreek Hill pick that we got, and that's how we got, Mecole Hardman, which, he did have the walk-off in the Super Bowl, so it's not like it's a total bust or anything. Mecole Hardman's been a good player for us. But I felt like there were other players available. And also, I was surprised that, we would trade up. There were several receivers on the board that were still pretty good, but we didn't really give up much. I mean, we traded our third in for a fourth. And if you know that's the guy that you want at that position, I mean, trading a third round for a fourth round is hella value there. So the more that I've watched it, his highlights and his speed, I do agree that, he's more than just like a really fast guy from what I've seen of the highlights that have been posted. The drops were a concern. But as John C. brought up, that the year that he had a really high drop percentage, I think he's also battling an injured hand. So it seems like he got most of the issues cleaned up the following year. I'm going to trust in Veach, though. I mean, that's what I said. I was like, we've won back-to-back Super Bowls. So like, what are we doing even questioning these guys? So those are kind of my initial thoughts on it.
Right. What about you, Scotty?
Yeah, there's been a lot of really fast guys that came into the league and didn't translate just because you're fast. There's a lot of fast guys, but those guys didn't have Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball, have Andy Reid offense, and didn't have Big Red coaching and drawing up the plays and scheming for him. So I liked it. I was hopeful. If you watched the show last week where we talked about it, I was okay with it, but I was kind of ho-hum. Like, I feel like here comes a first-round pick offensive lineman coming down the pipe right on deck here.
Eric Fisher, right?
If the guys that you wanted were gone and you're at the bottom of the first round, I mean, you're one pick away from it being a second-round pick, really. So you're kind of picking over the scraps of the first round when you're picking down there at the bottom. Not going to complain because that means you won the Super Bowl or you're the Bills and you traded with somebody.
Right.
To pick there at 32. There was a kind of a funny joke going around on X and on social media that the Bills just wanted to know what it felt like to pick at 32. That's why they traded with the Chiefs, and then they traded out of that pick too, actually. So, but I was excited to see him move up, get a guy. It's a guy they wanted, and when they've done that in the past, they pulled the trigger and moved up and got the guy. The top, there was like a consensus number one wide receiver this year. Almost everybody was saying that Marvin Harrison Jr. was the top wideout. Then there was some other guys, the guy from LSU, Malik Neighbors. Maybe he was the second guy or the third guy, depending on who you talk to. But when you go look at Xavier Worthy at Texas the last 3 years, the only two receivers that have more receiving yards than him are Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors out of LSU. So
Right.
say he set a record for touchdowns or second all-time in touchdowns scored at the University of Texas by a wide receiver. The guy can get into the end zone. So I'm really liking it, especially we talked about last week with the situation with Rashee Rice and not knowing.
Right.
Hollywood Brown is coming to the fold, signed by the Chiefs here as a free agent on a 1-year deal. That brings a veteran presence in there, so it wasn't complete panic mode by the Chiefs, but there's some question marks at wide receiver. I mean, you can't go into this year expecting much, if anything, out of Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney at this point. MVS is gone on and is no longer with the team, so they needed a guy. Seemed like the guy they wanted was within reach, so they moved up and they grabbed him. Do we think he comes in and has a productive a role or a big role early on, maybe more so than normally in an Andy Reid offense with rookie wide receivers who usually takes them into that first year, even into the second year of the team before they really start becoming a big part of the game plan and getting a lot of action. Bo, what do you think? You think we see him earlier?
You know, as you brought up with the Rashee Rice incident kind of looming in the background, I could kind of see him getting a bit of more of a starting role than what we would see normally without that incident going on, right? Andy Reid did mention that he had great return ability too. So, I mean, he's notorious for throwing new guys at punt returner and kick returner, especially if you got speed in hand. So that would be a position I could see him kind of getting some earlier reps in than normal. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of going with a weird receiving core here. A bunch of like fast, as you mentioned, littler guys, right? Marquise Brown isn't that big. Xavier Worthy's not too huge, right? And then like who's going to be our third? Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, they're not monsters. Rashee Rice kind of was that guy, but who knows how long he's got. So but no, yeah, I think we see him kind of get a few snaps in early, especially with his speed and the way Andy Reid's been running the offense with the receivers as they are. We've seen a lot of quick screens, a lot of quick outs, a lot of audibles and shifting guys around and using that like jet sweep motion to confuse defenses. I could see him just putting him in there for his speed, if anything. But yeah, I could see him getting in there for sure. What about you, Nick?
Yeah. So when I was listening to Veach talk about the draft, he said two things that piqued my interest. One, he said that, he came in to college and put up 1,000 yards that year. And so that to me makes me think that he's looking for somebody that he can like quickly digest a new system and produce. And then the other thing he said probably 3 times during the interview was special teams. So they're looking at, having him be a punt and kick returner as well. We saw that before with, Sky Moore to devastating effects in certain games. And then also, he was the punt return hero in the AFC Championship game. But so I think that they're looking for somebody that can be an impact player, maybe hit some home runs with the kick returns and the new rules as well. I know that they got Reese Zammit because they were saying that looks kind of like a rugby play. He's a fast guy too, but I would expect that you're going to see him back there taking the lion's share of the kick returns as well.
Yeah, I would like to see him be a part of the offense and be playing wide receiver. And I let Kadarius Toney return kicks and punts. He's got experience doing it. Obviously, had the huge punt return in the Super Bowl. I don't know what to expect out of him. He's done at Camp Patrick. They're in Texas with the rest of the guys, and so Sky Moore, I believe I've seen him there too, working with the guys. So don't know what to expect out of those guys, but I really want to see the guy come in and be a part of the offense early. He doesn't have to be the focal point, right? I'm not saying the guy has to come in and have 110 catches this year, but I'd like to see him starting in games, right, by week 2 or 3 or 4. especially like we talked about with Rashee Rice. I don't know what to expect for the suspension or how much we're going to be missing Rashee Rice. I got to imagine the suspension will be at the start of the season. If he misses 6 or 8 games or something like that, someone's got to step up. Maybe that's Hollywood Brown. A healthy Travis Kelce, rejuvenated with a new contract, maybe. He comes back and took a lot of the form last year, right? He got hurt the day before the season or the last practice of the preseason.
Last rep, I think.
Yeah.
Before week 1, and he missed that home opener against the Lions. So, not saying the guy has to come in and be the number 1A option in the passing game, but I feel like he needs to come in and not be someone who you're like, oh, he's on the field too, right? I want to see the guy come out and produce and play early. And I think a circumstance more than anything probably going to lead to the Chiefs doing that. It'd be great.
Do you guys feel
receiver for the Chiefs running away from defenses like the old cheetah days, right? Get a guy in open space and just beat the defense and get that home run.
Right.
Even if he's not getting a lot of catches, if he can get some more of these 40, 50, 60-yard touchdown catches that we saw with Tyreek Hill and stretch the defense and make them play a little bit more honestly with the other receiver as in the run game, that would be outstanding. So we'll keep an eye out for him and we'll see what his role is earlier in the season. Chiefs go.
I feel like when we talk about him, when we talk about Xavier Worthy, we also it's like the same attributes when we talk about Marquise Brown, right? We're like, he seems super similar in that aspect. And I think defenses will just have to respect his speed once they put him in there, if anything, right?
Right. Yeah, I don't know Hollywood Brown. I don't know what he looks like these days. He's not an old player by any stretch of the imagination, but he's also been in the league a while. So I don't know if he's necessarily got the blazing speed like he had coming out of college when he first got in there, but he's definitely a deep threat too. So put a couple of those guys out there, right? You can't shade deep to one side of the field. So maybe just his presence on the field too. If he's not catching the ball or they're not looking his way a lot, maybe he opens it up for some of those other guys, kind of like you were saying, Bo. So going to be interesting to see what they do there. The Chiefs go in the second round and go offensive lineman Kingsley Suamataia, I believe. Suamataia. I think I had it pretty close right the first time. I should have stuck with it there. Offensive lineman out of BYU. Another position of need, right? I mean, if the Chiefs were going into the draft with needs, it was wide receiver and probably left tackle, offensive line, right? They had the left tackle from last year. I don't think he's part of their plans. That was like a 1-year deal they signed him to and brought him over kind of last minute almost. Kind of like, oh, so we're going to bring this guy in here to start Tampa Bay. So kind of gotten a lot more mixed reviews from people on where he's at and what he's looking like as far as his NFL readiness. If you watch the interviews with him, he's ready to go, right? I mean, so he says, no one's touching Patrick Mahomes, and that's my job, and I'm going to hit the ground running, and I don't need time to get ready. I'm ready to go now. Nick, how NFL ready do you think this guy is, and do you think you see him out there like week 1 at left tackle for the Chiefs?
Yeah, I don't know about week 1. If he was super NFL ready, then he wouldn't have been drafted in the second round or towards the end of the second round. Right. So, there's going to be some question marks there, or else he would have been one of the, he's not like alt, right? Getting drafted by the Chargers there in the top 10 picks. So I think that we have a good coaching staff and we have a good system. And we've seen, we saw Wanya Morris come in as a rookie and start last year. So I don't know that he'll be starting week 1, but he could definitely be a starter after, the first quarter of the season, maybe halfway through the season where he starts seeing him take over those reps. But I mean, it just depends on, his acumen. I saw, I think it was Mitch on Twitter saying that he he had a hard time assessing him based on the schemes and stuff that they were running at the college he was at. So he wasn't, exactly sure how that translate over. But I mean, again, we trust the process of the people in the front office that they're identifying these guys, and they're seeing not only guys that they want, but they're seeing guys that they're willing to make some moves, even though they're not sacrificing a ton to move up. I mean, they moved up one spot just to get this guy, right? So they made a trade to move up one spot just so that they can make sure that he didn't get taken by another team. So I think those all point to him being a starter at some point this year.
Bo, I mean, do you think we see him right out of the gates, or what's your expectation?
Yeah, I'm with Nick, man. I'm not sure that he translates immediately to NFL readiness, but I mean, look at Creed Humphrey, right? He was a late second-round draft pick, and dude's baller and balling out of control right now, 2-time Super Bowl champ. So I mean, it's always hard trying to say whether or not if their ability and everything's is gonna do well in the NFL. It's just a completely different game, different speed, different size, different level of human you're going up against when you're trying to keep them away. And the coaches are going to have to see something really spectacular in there to keep them in there to protect Mahomes. It wasn't too surprising. What did we draft? Like 3 O linemen, right? Total, I think. So it's not surprising that
he's the one that was listed as a tackle. So yeah.
Okay. It's not surprising they want to protect Mahomes. I mean, that we got a weapon, protection, another kind of weapon, and then some defensive guys. And that's kind of playing out like past year's drafts. I mean, if you look at the moves we made, like Trent McDuffie was kind of one of those moves where we got a good defensive guy. I mean, we got a bunch of guys like in the second round. No, he was first round, excuse me. This iPhone, Scott's been talking a lot of shit about Apple. I'll just kind of give him some more credit. When it works, I don't know how it works. And that's kind of how I feel about the Chiefs front office, man. I don't know how they do it, but they just do it. And
I just know when it doesn't work.
We're on this crazy mission to just win in more spectacular fashion, man. I don't know. It's amazing the position we're in right now. We're just trying to add weapons to a back-to-back Super Bowl team. It's just it's fascinating to think, like, can we get even better? And I'm just curious to see if the guys we got can actually step up to the plate.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, like, maybe necessity, brings him in early. I don't know who's going to play left tackle on this team right now.
Right.
Solid in the center, and you got good guard play. Maybe, and you've got Juwan Taylor on the right side. There was some talk of maybe moving him to the left side when they signed him to that big money deal before last season. He had the penalty issues, felt like he was getting picked on a little bit there, thanks to Chris Collinsworth pointing out that he does what about every other right tackle in the NFL and left tackle does with timing the snap and going ahead early. So there was some talk about maybe he would go to left tackle, and Chiefs thought that he could play over there. Maybe you see that. Maybe you see the new guy over there, and maybe you help on obvious passing plays, chip with the tight end or something, right? Give him some help over on that left side. Again, maybe Wanya Morris can step up, and maybe he's a little bit more experienced, so maybe they give him a shot early on and see how he does. He was kind of a mixed bag last year. I think I saw Mitchell Shorts talking about him, and so there's some good, but there's also some bad, and it's a tough position to play, right? I mean, we talk about how hard it is to play some of these positions. I mean, playing left tackle in the NFL, protecting the quarterback's blind side with some of these edge rushers and defensive linemen that these teams got, definitely critical. I want to take the guy's word for it, right, and hope that is not overconfident in himself and that he can come in and play early. The Chiefs have shown that they can identify talent later in the draft that other teams
for sure
look. So, and we put out on the Chiefs Kingdom Live X account. If you're not following us there, you can hit us up there at Chiefs Kingdom Live. You can also follow us on the Facebook and the Instagram. These guys, like, the Chiefs are in a position to be able to trade up, right, and move around and move back in later rounds. When you crush the draft and free agency the way this team has the last 2 or 3 seasons especially, and you don't have gaping holes and huge obvious needs all over the roster, you can afford to move up 2 or 3 spots and move back from the 3rd to the 4th round, because you need a wide receiver, and other than that, you really don't need much. And you can move up one spot and move back a little bit later and take the offensive lineman that you like, because you're not looking to fill, oh, we got to fill 2 spots on the offensive line and a spot on the defensive line, and we got to get a running back, and we need help in the secondary, right? Like you see a lot of these teams doing going into the draft. They don't need to do that. So they've positioned themselves really, really well the last couple of years by picking making really good draft picks, signing free agent guys like Drew Tranquil that just come in on a 1-year deal and dude kicks ass and helps lead your team to a Super Bowl victory, and then comes back on team-friendly deal just because he likes being here. That's kind of the Chiefs effect and the Patrick Mahomes effect of winning Super Bowls and going to the Super Bowl pretty much every year, right? You saw Hollywood Brown talked about that. He said, I came on a 1-year deal. I was offered more money and probably some longer contracts elsewhere, but the dude wanted to play with Patrick Mahomes. He wants to get a ring, and he came to the Chiefs. So I'm
really surprised that's not more of an incentive for more players, right? To take more team-friendly deals and get on better teams, especially with some of the caliber teams that are out there. And, like there's some really good players on some really shitty teams. And, just, hey, take one for the –
some people are out there for the bag and the money, and that's their main goal. And, hey, no, I'm not hating on those guys. You're in there. You're playing football. It's your job.
It's also one of those things, right? Like it's probably one of those jobs that's so hard to get. You're just thankful to have a job in the NFL, right? Like that's a to be determined later kind of move if you can.
Chiefs make a pick at tight end with their 3rd pick. I believe that was in the 4th round because they traded away the 3rd, right?
Right.
But they pick up Jared Wiley, tight end out of TCU. He's a dude that you watch some of his highlight tape, and of course everybody looks good in the highlights, right? They don't put the low lights on YouTube, but this is a dude that kind of like Xavier Worthy has a nose for the end zone. I want to say he led tight ends the last season or 2 in touchdowns. He's a guy that is known pretty well. He's got some really, really good blocking, but the guy can get out in the open field and catch the ball and has good hands. I'm excited about that guy and what he can do. We talked about having Noah Gray, and he's been a nice, fine player, a contributor on back-to-back Super Bowl champion teams. But he has not really shown that like he can come in and be Travis Kelce's replacement in a couple of years. Now, when I say Travis Kelce's replacement, I don't think keeping the expectation of anybody to be the next Travis Kelce is fair, because there's only been one
high bar there
in the 100+ year history of the NFL. But the Chiefs were obviously looking for a guy that maybe can step up as Travis ages here a little bit. He's got a 2-year extension on top of the deal, so a couple, 2 or 3 more years.
Let's go.
We might be seeing the end of him, and we'll talk about that deal and our favorite Travis Kelce moments here in a little bit. But Nick, did you like the tight end pick, that position there in the 4th round?
That was one of the positions I said we needed a draft last week on the show, so I was happy that at least it seemed like the Chiefs agreed with me. I mean, even with the extension, right? Like we need to start looking at the transition plan, like Scotty was saying, from Travis Kelce into, okay, so who's going to be the next guy that can take over and be productive, right? Not be Hall of Fame necessarily, but be productive and step into that role. And also in the next couple of years, take some of maybe the weight off of Travis's shoulders so we can have him for the reps that we need later in the season and in those high leverage moments, right? So I was excited to see them take a mid-round tight end, right? I didn't think that they should go, tight end in the 1st round. And it really seemed like there was only one real legitimate 1st round tight end talent. And so obviously he went to the Raiders. And so I was thrilled with the pick, man. I think it's good that they're thinking about the future there, and they're trying to, figure out what life is going to look like without Travis Kelce, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, dude, I couldn't agree more. I think it's a smart move, right? We got to have an exit strategy for that guy. As excited as I am that he signed an extension with the team, it's kind of puts a time limit on us too. I'm like, all right, we gotta find somebody to fill this void. And dude casts a big shadow on that field. He knows what he's doing. And I think it is a great move too, Nick. I think it's the right kind of talent. Everything I've heard about the guy is he's really coachable. And I feel like that's the right guy you want in that position under Travis Kelce. Because, I mean, you see Kelce right away, like right now, like he's coaching other guys. He's such a huge veteran mentor player that I think a guy like that's going to do big things in this organization. Excited to see him play. But yeah, I couldn't agree more that we're on our way to an exit strategy. As sad as it is, couldn't be more thankful for having Travis Kelce. He's one of those guys that are 1 in a million, and we have two of those 1 in a million guys on our team. So it's just been fantastic having him on our team. And he's been that way since before Mahomes. He was lighting it up with Alex Smith, and just always been pretty great. So it's going to suck to see him go, but I like that we're bringing in guys that he likes too. He mentioned that he likes it, and that he's ready to mentor. So
yeah, there's nobody better to learn from than the greatest of all time, right? Come in and get the tutelage from Travis Kelce and learn the playbook and kind of pick up on some cues. And you can learn a lot from a guy like Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce has obviously the generational athletic abilities, right? But the dude also, he just knows how to get open. And you go back to the 13-second game, right? And being able to recognize, like, hey, if they're going to play the sideline like that, I'm going to cut this back inside. I mean, those are things that you can impart on a younger guy and you can teach somebody else. You don't have to be the most athletic guy. You don't have to be the biggest, fastest, strongest tight end or to the biggest, fastest, strongest guy out in the field to be able to pick up on nuance like that and learn those little tricks of the trade from a guy like Travis Kelce. So guys coming into an awesome spot with Travis as the mentor and Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball and Andy Reid coaching and drawing up the plays. Picking a guy with your third pick in this draft at that position too, it also gives you a year or two to see what you got. If you got 3 more years of Travis Kelce, maybe you get a year or two in and this guy's just not panning out or you're not seeing what you want to see or get what you think you need to get out of that. That gives you a little bit more time, right, to maybe swing and miss and then maybe get another swing at somebody else in the draft here in a couple of years. So those first 3 picks to me were just saying we really need a wide receiver, we really need a tackle, and we really need a replacement for Kelce at some point. We're gonna take those 1, 2, 3. I know Wiley's a 4th round pick, but he's the 3rd pick for the Chiefs. So you always hear, do teams go best player available or do they go by need? It looks to me like the Chiefs definitely leaned towards position need, maybe more so than best player available. Nick, you getting ready to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, what do you think that means for Noah Gray? Do you think that they're potentially not going to re-sign him, or?
I don't know. I hadn't really given much thought to what that means for Noah Gray long term. Noah Gray's made some nice plays for this team, some key points. Chiefs, Andy Reid can draw it up to get 3 tight ends out there on the field. We saw it with Travis Kelce and Fordson and Gray and Blake Bell. A guy like Blake Bell was out there on the field. So there's plenty of wrinkles and plenty of things that Andy Reid can do with the tight end position. I feel like to still involve a guy like Noah Gray, a veteran guy, I think you probably see Wiley get worked in maybe a little bit slower than you see maybe like an Xavier Worthy, right? It's a little bit more of a position of depth. But I like that there's probably 3 most important things we need going for the 3-peat and beyond, and that's what they did. You see teams like they pick an offensive lineman with like the 4th overall pick, and they need they need like a wide receiver, or they need a tight end or something, right? And so,
like
he was the best player on our board. Well, yeah, but it's not as important of a position. So I feel like teams, they get wrapped up in that order, the best player available, and we're not going to draft by need. I think that's foolish. I think you got to kind of find like a balance between the two.
That's the approach I took with my fantasy team this year, and I won a couple leagues, right? Like, balance, not just, who's the best still available? Like, no, what do I need right now?
Yeah, I should have won one league, but that's a sore subject. I win the most games in that league all the time and somehow don't come home with a trophy. But I came home with it the year before, so that's okay. Kind of wrap up some of the draft talk. Chiefs, they picked up some other offensive linemen, right? The guy from Holy Cross in the late round. Picked up some secondary help. The safety out of Penn State. They did pick a cornerback in round 6, which is pretty late, but the Chiefs, they've shown that they can identify talent.
Yeah, Jalen Watson was a 7th rounder working in Wendy's or something like that, right?
Yeah, and he was a guy that had some pedigree and was going to USC and kind of fell through the cracks and ended up at a community college. He was a pretty highly rated guy coming out of high school and going into college. I want to say he was like one of these 4 or 5 star guys. But yeah, I'm expecting this guy to step in and be the next L'Jarius Sneed. I don't know. That's kind of like saying this guy's going to come in and be the next Travis Kelce or something. A guy that's going to come in and just play at an all-pro level. You don't really need that with Trent McDuffie. So you saw the Chiefs kind of fill some more secondary needs later on the defense. We definitely anticipated an offense heavy, right? We talked about this last week on the show. Nick and I did. I felt they were going to be tilted more towards offense. That was pretty much every team in the NFL too. So there was like a record
14 straight.
14 straight is the most, or it's tied for the most offensive players taken in the first round. Quarterbacks.
7 of them were like quarterbacks, right? 7 or 8 of them. Right?
5 of the first 10 or 11 picks. I know everybody, this is going to get off a little off topic here, but I know everybody was roasting the Falcons for
rightly so.
Look, I mean, here's the deal. Like Kirk Cousins, he's getting older and he's hurt, and that guy felled him. I was very happy that they picked him up there and he didn't slip and fall down to the Broncos or the Raiders, because
touche.
He was a guy that I really I thought was kind of like underranked as far as quarterbacks coming out. I mean, everybody was like, oh, it's definitely McCarthy and May ahead of him. And I was like, man, you watch this guy play and what he's done at Washington, right? And I know there's the injury issues and the injury history with that guy. So, but yeah, I mean, you got Kirk Cousins on a 1 or 2 year deal, and you get Penix in the fold, let him learn from a Kirk Cousins. So I thought there was some shrewd moves made and some smart moves there in the first half.
Yeah.
This Patrick Mahomes effect on the league in the draft.
Oh, dude. You kind of mentioned it earlier. You saw it, right? With all these quarterbacks getting drafted and just so offensive heavy. We mentioned it here before. You can just see the league scrambling right now to try and just keep up, or like, try to gain some ground on us. We're so far ahead. It's funny right now. I try to go back to this Buffalo trade. The internet this week has just been so glorious. I found myself watching Buffalo Bills podcast, just the reaction to the draft, and every Bills fan, podcaster and announcer, or like just, Uber fan, all had the same reaction. Just, what are you guys doing? And it's just been glorious cruising the internet. It's just been fabulous. But yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. Head over to the Chiefs Kingdom Live X account. We put out some secret footage of the Bills owner calling the GM after the trade. So head on over there and check that out. So pretty funny stuff. They also, I'm sure then you saw the video of all the fans at the Bills draft party thing they had. And kids announced, everybody's like looking around like, what's going on?
Dude, at first I thought somebody edited that video to where like it was the game against the Chiefs and they lost. I'm like, oh, of course, the Chiefs. Oh, everybody's upset. It's like, oh, that's a pretty good edit. And then there's just multiple angles of that same place, and everybody, I'm just like, oh, okay, this is great. This is glorious.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it too real quick. There was the that's not good now, but
I mean, I was happy to see Penix get drafted, because every time there's a left-handed quarterback, I'm like, what are my people?
Go lefties.
Yeah, I can't. I'm trying to remember the guy's name now too. He had like 300. He had hundreds of thousands of followers, and he put down, Bills are stacking guys on affordable contracts at positions of need, and they won this trade just like they won for the last trade between the teams. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking,
Oh yeah, they tried to say that they won the trade with Mahomes, right? Like, huh?
oh, they got Travis White and
We're
they got
good.
Poyer and they got this guy, and I'm like, dude, you traded the pick away that got the quarterback with the best start to a career in NFL history. It's not close right now with him and Tom Brady.
And everybody they
look.
picked for that trade isn't even on their team anymore.
Right. And, well, that brought us back from obscurity. I was like, I mean, that made you a playoff team, and you win a weak ass division, and then
You've just been good enough to lose to them 3 of the last 4 years.
Right. So I couldn't believe that there are people out there though that think that the Bills, that was a fair trade, or the Bills actually won that trade because they got 3 really good guys, and the Chiefs only got.
Make that trade again.
Yeah, I'd make that trade again too. I hope you would, honestly. So, overall thoughts, and I think here everybody's in agreement. Pretty good trade. I mean, Bo, what grade would you give the draft?
Being as biased as I am, I want to say A right away, but I'm leaning more towards like A minus, B plus. I'm just worried that you kind of mentioned L'Jarius Sneed leaving and a couple key guys on defense leaving. I wonder if the heavy drafting of offensive players is enough to offset the talent we're losing on defense. That's just kind of my chief concern. Again, it's you never know with guys in the draft, right? But obviously we're going a little bit more offensive heavy and sacrificing a little bit on defense. We did keep a lot of key guys on defense too, however, but I'm just curious to see if those position groups will get filled accordingly. And like I said, trust in Veach. I don't have any doubt that he will do that, but we might have a rookie going up against some top receivers again, right? And L'Jarius Sneed was so clutch last year. I'm just a little worried that he was I don't know. He just didn't get the value I thought he was worth. I thought he was amazing, just all-star player, and he got a second-round pick trade for him. But again, that's just my chief concern. But again, yeah, A minus. I'll go A minus on the draft. I thought like I said, protecting Mahomes, getting him some weapons, that's always chief concern, and I'm in favor of always doing that. And then we drafted some guys to alleviate my concerns. So yeah, I give it an A minus. What about you guys?
Nick?
Yeah, we added depth at wide receiver. So our line, we've got a potential replacement for Travis Kelce down the road, or somebody that can help, share some snaps with him. And then, we drafted a couple of defensive backs, right? I mean, I think that's all that you could have asked for out of this draft. I feel like that was, I don't know that you could say it's like a master class, right? But I mean, even the trades, we were trading and we weren't really giving up that much. I mean, how often do you jump up in the first round and you still have the same amount of picks?
Yeah, you don't even lose a pick.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel like it was overall an A for me. I mean, I feel like it addressed everything that we were hoping that they would address. And, we're at a point where we're putting final touches on the masterpiece, right? That is this team, as opposed to other teams. They're like still trying to mix their paint. You know what I mean? So
right, they're still looking for a brush, man.
Yeah, they're clipping horsehair to make their brushes and shit. So I feel like if we hit on half of these picks, then we're gonna be having a three-peat party, man. I mean, I just let's go. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm giving it an A. You went up and you got
straight A, no A plus.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have a hard time giving pluses or minuses. Like, I don't know. I'm gonna give it. That's a solid A in my book. You went up and got a wide receiver that a lot of people think is one of the top 2 or 3 or 4 receivers in the draft, and you were picking at 32. You get a tackle that's got good size and all of the kind of the measurements and the size and the weight and that you want at that position. And you got a guy who can find the end zone and a tight end and a 4th round pick. Chiefs didn't have 2 firsts and 2 seconds and a 3rd here, right? So,
John, I think you mean a happy little Super Bowl trophy. A happy little Super Bowl trophy, right?
Yeah. A happy little Lombardi.
Right. Yeah. Good to see our man Nico in here.
Hey-o.
Eye on Worthy, but watch that asshole be the next cheetah. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough to be the next Cheetah. I mean, Tyreek Hill's on
I
track.
liked your nickname for him, Scott, the Flash.
But that's the thing. Like we've seen, he doesn't. Chiefs have won 2 Super Bowls without the Cheetah, right? He don't have to be the Cheetah. He just needs to come in and provide and give the Chiefs a deep threat right here and there. He don't have to come in necessarily be like 1,500 yard a year receiver with guys like Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce here on the team and Hollywood Brown, who I expect to have 1,000-yard receiving season this year. So, look,
Yeah, dude, I couldn't agree more.
I don't want this to get taken out of context or taken the wrong way, but Felix Anudike-Uzomah, right, the first-round pick for the Chiefs last year, the defensive lineman, he basically contributed nothing last year, right, outside of
we got a tackle in the Super Bowl. I remember that.
Losses here and there, and the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. So, look, when you've got Patrick Mahomes and you've got Travis Kelce and you've got Andy Reid, that gives you a lot of leeway, right? And that gives you some flexibility, and that makes other guys not have to necessarily be all-pro Hall of Famers all over the field when you've got 3 guys like that already tracking for the Hall of Fame. So I'm excited about this Carson Steele, too, the free agent guy that they drafted out of UCLA. That dude looks like he could be this fullback type guy, right? Maybe the third running back, or maybe he even can take over for a guy like CEH. For that,
I think we see the fullback position get re-implemented.
I mean, I don't know that you'll see it get. He's a running back, right? But he's like a big bruising running back. So I think he's a guy that could come in and maybe compete for that backup running back position, and you could also use him like as a lead blocker and use him as that like hybrid fullback position that you saw the Chiefs like to use there, especially on short yardage plays and things like that. So some interesting draft picks, interesting signing, undrafted free agent guys. Every year, man, there's those guys that don't get drafted, that get overlooked, that come in and produce. So maybe the Chiefs have found a guy there.
Are you guys more stoked about this receiving crew or last year's receiving? Do you feel like you were more stoked on the receiving crew last year at this point after the draft? Because, I mean, we just got, Rice, and then, like, there's the Rice-Ross combo, and then we were pretty deep at the position. We were talking like, oh, man, this is going to be interesting to see who gets cut, right? Now it's kind of more like
number 7.
all right.
Right.
We got some good talent, but, like, how are you guys feeling about this position group as a whole this year?
I mean, I feel good. I feel way better about the wide receiving core this year than I did last year. Light years better. If you remember, if you go back to the early season and preseason shows we did last year, I was not sold on the Kadarius Toney Sky Moore hype, right? I mean, I looked at what Sky Moore did his rookie year, and it was underwhelming even for an Andy Reid coached team at the wide receiver position.
Right.
Kadarius Toney, he was a guy that had not been able to stay healthy and play more than like a half or 3/4 of a season in his career. And outside of a couple of games, I won't say he had like one 100-yard receiving game going into last season. I was not that high on the receiving core last year. So to say that I'm higher on this year's group than last year, I didn't really think a whole lot last year going in.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Man, I'm still don't understand.
I'm still so hopeful for him.
Hey,
still him, man. He's still on the roster.
Training camp hero, and then dude like disappears.
The most hyped
in the
person to
season.
get no snaps ever in
Right.
the NFL, right?
So I am much higher on the wide receiving core in that position group this year than I was last year. Nick, you feel the same way probably?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we signed a legitimate, good free agent in the off season. Rice, if you believe the internet, the everything is happening from him from a half a year suspension down to not getting suspended at all this year. So we have no idea, right? I mean, we have no idea.
Just meet in the middle, nice 4 games right there. That's to do that, yeah.
But he's on the team, right? And he's awesome. He contributed to the overtime Super Bowl win, and really could have got the walk-off touchdown there at the end. But Patrick was picking the ball up out of the dirt. So he's going to be a great player. The Chiefs are not walking away from him. It sounds like his legal troubles, maybe he's probably not going to be, going away for an extended period of time, which, fingers crossed, right? And then I mean, with Xavier Worthy, pulling some of those guys back and making sure that they're, paying attention to his speed. I mean, I know I took a shot at Mecole Hardman a little bit earlier, but I mean, Mecole Hardman had some touchdowns. I mean, he had some home run plays for us. And so, if you get a guy that can contribute at that level, it's really about taking some of the pressure off of the other guys that we need to perform as well, right? It's like when all we had as a team was Jamal Charles and everybody knew it. That's what made him so impressive, is like he could still do it. But most of these, players, they just can't do that, especially, like Travis Kelce maybe 5 years ago, but at 34, like he needs maybe a little bit more help, right? And he's not running, he's never been a super fast guy. He needs space. And so if like they just crowd the space that he's going to be in and there's 4 guys there, he's not going to get open. And so I feel like having that set of people that can really make that defense maybe move back a little bit and free up some space is going to be huge for the receiving core overall. Question is, can they catch the ball?
Yeah.
That's a big question right there.
Worthy and Brown, I don't, just people seem to think his hands are suspect, but much better catching the ball than MVS. So look, Bo, I take it you're probably higher on this group than last year's, or no?
With great reserve, I'm very optimistic this year because I was super high last year.
I know you were.
Oh, who's going to be 7th, man? I still am pretty high on Kadarius Toney. I think that dude is a freak athlete. But I'm with you, dude. He just can't last. He's so injury prone that you can almost bet on him not lasting, right? So I'm just hoping that, like, if he could stay healthy, we would see a different animal out of him. I mean, I've just seen some amazing plays with him. I mean, you already brought up the Super Bowl punt return, but last year I was at that Buffalo game where he caught that pass from Travis Kelce from like 40 yards across the field and ran in for a touchdown that got called back because his toes were offside. So, I mean, I just go back and forth with the guy. I really like him. I'm stoked he's on the team. But our receiving core, they seem a lot more sure-handed. I feel like I could say that with confidence that, like, this group should be able to catch the ball. I didn't even think that was going to be a talking point last year. Like, oh, can our guys catch the ball? I thought it was a done deal. This group seems a little bit more experienced. No reason they shouldn't. So I'm a lot higher this year than I was last year for sure. But with great reserve, because man, it stung when that just turned out to be the.
I just feel like if it was going to happen with Kadarius Toney, it would have happened by now. Is kind of where I'm at with him, right? I mean, who was the last guy that broke out in his 4th year? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
That's true. It's nothing personal against the guy. I just don't see it happening. So, and I think the Chiefs realized that and moved on from the Sky Moore Kadarius Toney experiment. I think you see that with the picks of Rashee Rice and Brown and Xavier Worthy.
Yeah,
the guy who does not have a problem catching the ball, Travis Kelce. He gets a contract extension, pretty much guaranteeing he's going to finish his career with the Chiefs. He's now the highest paid tight end in the league, which really he should have been the highest paid tight end in the league pretty much every year he was in the league. But we talked earlier about guys taking the team deal and being a team player and caring more about legacy and caring more about wins, right? And getting those rings in the Super Bowl championships. And that's the definition of Travis Kelce, right? On this team. I want to say there was years where he was like the 4th or the 5th or the 6th highest paid tight end in the league. And the freaking guy was clear. He's one of the best. Yeah. If you put wide receiver next to his name, he would have been a top 2 or 3 wide receiver in the NFL, making half
most years.
We're making. Travis Kelce, Bo, how excited are you for him to get this payday? And what do you think we see out of him this year?
Oh, I'm beyond excited. When I heard that news, right? Like I let out an audible woo. Ashley's like, "What are you doing?" I had to tell her, right? I mean, the talk last year was, a lot of the talk, granted it was shit talk, was, is Travis Kelce still in his prime? Is he too old? Is he going to retire at the end of this year like his brother did, kind of stuff, right? Like that was like kind of all the talk. And it just kind of gives you some security knowing that he's going to be here for 2 years and just knowing that we got 2 more years of Mahomes and Kelce together. That right there, like, kind of gives me goosebumps just saying it out loud. Like, yes, because it's easy to recognize the greatness in those 2 guys and what they do year in and year out. So beyond thrilled that we get him for at least 2 more years. You know, now I'm just kind of more concerned, can this 34-year-old stay healthy, right? That's always concerned with any player, but especially as you kind of age. And we saw kind of sense of it showing up last year a little bit, but you know, that guy knows what he's doing. A 34-year-old today is not a 34-year-old 10, 15 years ago. So it's just a new era of sports nutrition and training where these guys don't go out and completely destroy their bodies. And I think he still has a lot of tread on those tires. That guy's beyond awesome. He has just one of those feels for the game where like he doesn't have to exert all of his energy the way other guys do. He can just fill the pockets and just kind of beat guys just with little movements. It's so fun to watch. I'm so glad he's on our team. Deservedly so, the highest paid tight end, right? Like I love that he just keeps setting the bar for every other tight end in the NFL. Like they're scrambling now because now they have to pay their tight ends a lot of money and not get the same production that they get out of Kelce. So I'm just loving every aspect of it. Yeah, thrilled. How about you guys? What are you guys thinking about this?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you hear that Travis Kelce is going to be back for more years, you got to be super excited about it. It basically guarantees, in my mind, that he's going to retire Chief, right? I mean, he said that he won't play for anybody else, but I mean, this is probably the final deal, you know, and you know he's taken a lot of team friendly deals, but he deserves to be paid as the highest. And then also he, you know, as a player, it's weird. You have like an obligation to your team, but you also, when you're one of those premier players, you kind of have an obligation to the other people at your position to try to help them, you know, get paid adequately, or, you know, try to help get more of the percentage of the money go to your position group across the NFL. So it's probably a little bit of a weird spot, but I mean, nobody has given more to the city of Kansas City or Chiefs fans than Travis Kelce has. I mean, I know that Mahomes has brought us to Super Bowls and stuff, but Kelsey's been there and he's been an integral part.
He gave us Swifty Nation. Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, he even brought us Taylor Swift. So, like, I mean, I just
sorry, Scott. I knew you'd love that one.
Give him all the accolades or escalades, right?
All right. As Jamal Charles would say, give him all the escalades. Look, it's the guy. I just feel like he played hurt last year, and you saw towards the end of the year, especially after he got that bye week there, where it wasn't an actual bye week, but he got that last week of the season off, right, and didn't play and got to rest up. He looked like himself in the playoffs, and so
yeah,
I think you see maybe into the prime Travis Kelce, but that's still really damn good, right? Like Travis Kelce to me, I just can't say enough about the guy and what he's done, and to do it and not be one of these people that's like me, I got to be the highest paid guy. I got to make the most money. You hear these guys, Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams, and you know there's an argument to be made that they're the best wide receiver in the league. Or you see quarterbacks that, I want to be the number one, I want to be the highest paid guy, right? And there's some debate after Patrick Mahomes, who's the best quarterback, and there's no debate. And there has really been no debate for several years about Travis Kelce being the best tight end in the league. So, I mean, if anybody could come out and make that claim and demand to be the highest paid guy, it was him, and he didn't do it. And he's got 3 Super Bowl trophies to show for it. And, you know, him and his brother's podcast is worth somewhere around $100 million supposedly now. So,
do you remember when people were actually debating us on whether or not Travis Kelce was better than like George Kittle or not?
There's people out there, 49ers fans now. I'm going to give them a little bit of slack. There's a little bit of homerism. And look, man, I've got homerism too when it comes to things, right? Like, yeah, no, I just so happy for Travis. I know we didn't talk about this before the show. I'd like to see maybe what people in the chat think. And I can go first if you guys need some time here. But like, favorite Travis Kelce play or memory with the Chiefs? I've got 2. The first one is, remember when he threw the towel at the referee? The flag? And I thought that was overblown. But he threw it in the direction of the referee, right? He didn't throw it at the referee and hit the referee, but I still just thought, because the referee sucked, man. He was obviously getting held in the end zone, right, over and over and over, and he threw the flag. So, I mean, that's like kind of like one of my like favorite Kelce antics of all time. To me, I'm gonna go with probably my favorite Travis Kelce play. The overtime winner against the Chargers from a couple of years ago.
Oh, fuck, dude, I was just thinking of that one, man. Yeah.
Dude, that's
All right, I got
just
a couple lined up. We're good.
he's just owned the Chargers, right? There's plenty of favorite Travis Kelce plays to pick, but in overtime, in their new stadium on prime time, when the division was in the balance that year, right? Like the Chiefs lose that game, and then the Chargers, I want to say, would have been tied or would have been a half a game or one of those weird things right back when you start looking at head-to-head stuff. It basically put the division on ice, and that's what that dude's done his whole career. When the biggest moments come in the season in the game,
Yeah.
to make the play. So, which one do you guys want to go? Nick, Bo, you said you got one lined up.
You can go first.
Dude, I've got a couple, right? One didn't even happen. It was that play I talked about with Kadarius Toney where he threw a 40-yard lateral across the field. It was going to put Buffalo away. It was going to send them home. It was going to end their season. It was such a great play, and it's such an exciting moment. I didn't realize there was a penalty called until the ref actually got on the loudspeaker at the game and announced it. I didn't see the flags or anything. I was completely blown away, and now that will forever be in my memory. But I mean, for some reason, that last year he had such a great year for sound bites that that's kind of my favorite memory of him, from like calling out the mayor of Cincinnati to knowing his role and calling him a jabroni, right? Just he had you got to fight for your right to part, everything like that, dude. Like he was the man last year doing all that with his podcast and everything. So I mean, it's hard to pick one. My favorite play is the 4-touchdown game, right? Because then the next week we came on with so many Al Bundy clips and just giving him so many props about how good he was. And talk about just owning teams. Yeah, talk about just owning teams. That guy owns the Raiders. Every time he's been there, he just crushes them, dude. And he between that and like his celebration dances, I don't know. The guy's he's just a gift. He's just such a gift to watch. And so it's been so amazing. Like it's hard to pick one, but those would probably be some of my favorite moments from him.
So my runner-up is the play where he catches the ball and he's basically still in the air, and then he laterals it back to Shady McCoy. Against the Lions, and even the announcer goes, "Oh, that was sick!" Like, right. I mean, that was so smooth. I know he's done a couple of laterals, but that one was just like it almost looked like a drawn-up play the way they did it.
Right.
So that's my runner-up. I mean, I got to go with the overtime touchdown in the 13-second game. I mean, like,
yeah.
And then
first
later,
and goal.
Yeah, and then later you see
Kels.
Orchestrate the 13-second drive and everything, but just like him getting that touchdown, it was a great catch. It sealed the deal. Like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about that game, man. Yeah. Like, I mean, that was just. That moment, because Scotty and I were at that game, and awesome. Like, I mean, I don't know, it was just that was like a moment that will forever live in my memory as a Chiefs fan. So,
since you guys picked two plays, I only picked one. Believe in this one because I figured someone would say it. The touchdown against the 49ers, that kind of sparked the comeback, right?
Yeah,
in Super Bowl.
Okay, in the Super Bowl. Yeah,
and really kind of lit a fire under that team, and really that was the start of the comeback and the first championship in 50 years for this franchise. So congratulations, Travis Kelce. Man, just enjoy him while he's here because we're closer to the end than the beginning, unfortunately.
Oh, dude, that catch Doug's talking about where he laid out and caught it. Yeah, man.
That
was a great one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, we could sit here all night and do a 5-hour show on Travis Kelce highlight favorite Travis Kelce plays. But
there you go, driving out of Arrowhead in the convertible with Taylor.
That's pretty, that's pretty baller. Not gonna lie,
all the Riz, as the kids would say.
Right. Yeah.
One of the moments that stand out isn't even a Travis Kelce moment. One that will live with me forever because of Travis Kelce is sitting next to a Swiftie at a game and just watching this person with binoculars stare at Taylor Swift through binoculars for the entire game. Right. That was an interesting experience that I'll never forget. Just like, the game's down this way, right? But anyway.
Yeah, no doubt. Before we get out of here, final thing really to talk about, speaking of Arrowhead, there's a story that's come out where there's an artist rendering about a new Arrowhead Stadium. Obviously, the stadium vote did not pass to keep the Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium. I don't know what I think about that rendering. That doesn't look. It's computer rendering, right? And I've checked it out. And I'm sure it would be posh and spectacular or whatever, but that drawing there really doesn't do a whole lot for me, right? I mean, I can see that they're trying to make it look like Arrowhead, but new, right? I don't know if you can do that or not. I don't really care.
That doesn't really look like Arrowhead.
No, it kind of does when you look at the rings around the side,
yeah.
especially that side shot of it. But here's
like the
deal.
Ring of
I don't
Honor
care
being
if they're on
the
Kansas or Missouri side. Really, I want them to stay in Arrowhead. I want them to renovate Arrowhead. I want Arrowhead to become like a Fenway, right? Something like that, like a Wrigley Field. It's like been playing here for 100 years at some point, you know.
Yeah, some history to it.
I feel like you could do that, but to me, I just do not want the retractable roof stuff, man, because that thing's gonna be closed unless it's 72 degrees and sunny outside, man. Football is not meant to be played indoors. We'll go around
that Miami game that we went to, man. Yeah, you know that roof would have been closed for that game. Just no ifs, ands, or buts when it's minus 30. And yeah, it's a bit of concern for me.
I wouldn't have black spots on my toes for 3 or 4 weeks.
Are you serious?
That might be an argument for
Black
stadium. I don't know, but I mean, what do you guys think about moving out of Arrowhead and just this rendering and this proposal for the Chiefs Stadium, maybe in the Kansas side, Nick?
Well, I mean, I kind of said when the vote was up, I was like, I mean, there's other people that are willing to do more.
Right.
And I know that Kansas, people were saying, well, they didn't even, vote on it or whatever. Well, they'll call a special session to vote on it. And now they're talking funding it 100% from a star bond. And so that would mean that essentially, way better deal than what they were, Jackson County was offering for the Chiefs. And so, look, I'm with you. For where I live, driving the Legends versus there would be, more stuff to do. So, like, I would like to see Arrowhead renovated and like to see it, updated and kept, mostly because if they do build a new stadium, I don't think there's any way with our weather here that they're not going to do some kind of covered or retractable roof. And so it takes away the cold weather advantage. But I just feel like when you're at a game in a dome versus when you're at a game outside, the experience is incomparably better. And I've sat through some pretty miserably cold games, but those are like some of the best games that I've ever been to. The Dolphins.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying being in a dome was better. Is this like, huh?
No. The Dolphins game with you guys, right? I mean, like that's something like you're gonna talk about for the next 40 years, where you're like, dude, I was at this game and it was like 100 below zero, and my brother got black spots on his toes. But my
brother lost 2 toes. We lost a lot of good men that day.
My brother totally crushed, or like, the Chiefs totally crushed the shit out of the Dolphins. Or the 13-second game was cold. The AFC Championship game against the Bengals, I was frozen during that game. I didn't dress properly for that game, and it's like was like wet snow beforehand, and then it got dark.
That Tennessee Titans AFC Championship game was cold.
But it's an advantage. But I just feel like when you're in a stadium that is enclosed, because I've been to the Edward Jones Dome, which I know wasn't like a premier dome. But I've also walked around in a couple of other domes. Like I was at the Minnesota Vikings Dome. Beautiful building. Feels more like a luxury hotel than a football stadium to me. And so for me, like walking around in Arrowhead has like a feeling to it, an old school football feeling. And so, I mean, that's would be my preference. But if they're going to build a new stadium, I don't really have any preference. It's not going to be in my hometown up here north of 435, yeah,
by the airport,
right? So I don't have a preference otherwise. I feel like Jackson County really screwed the pooch there, to be honest. I don't think that they're gonna now, if they're gonna get a deal, it's gonna be like we're funding the entire thing, because that's what somebody else is offering.
Yeah, make it more than free, maybe. I don't know. Bo,
well, I'm curious, Scott.
Are you pro Arrowhead renovations, or are you pro new stadium?
I'm torn, right? Because like I don't live there, so like I obviously don't have as big a dog in this fight by any means. But I was curious to get your opinion on this picture right here. What do you think of this parking situation? Doesn't look like there's a lot L
No,
or O out there, you know, and it looks pretty decent. And
I don't know. That's
I would be. What's that?
From a computer drawing, but
Yeah.
No, I know. I'm just kind of giving shit
I
because the
mean,
parking
this
situation is
drawing
pretty
hot
atrocious.
surfacing is weird because this was commissioned to be made by the person that did Allegiant Stadium.
Yep.
In Las Vegas. So I mean, this is like somebody paid an actual stadium architect for this rendering, and it came out relatively quickly after the vote. So that's a little weird, right? I mean,
right.
And it's like anonymous who paid for it. I mean,
See, I don't know if you can zoom in or not on that. Can you zoom in on that picture at all?
I mean,
Yeah, here.
Powder Bowl looks like Arrowhead, right? I mean, I get it.
Oh,
What they're doing there.
God.
Oh,
Pop-ups coming up. Baseball
Falls
game.
off.
It's all falling apart on me. I guess not.
Heads are falling off.
Okay, I guess you can zoom in.
Yes, I can. It took away the extra.
Well, I mean, you can see like the sides there. It's got that like where it goes
Mhm.
down kind of like Arrowhead and comes with those points on the corners, and it's like contoured down, and it's kind of got the little column looking things there, the ribs or whatever you want to call it on the side. I mean, they definitely modeled that off of the current stadium, which is, hey, that'd be cool, right? Maybe you could even like take some stuff out of the old stadium and use it to make the new stadium or something like that. I'm sure you could probably work a way to do that. So
Yeah, Jackson County's not going to be using it.
yeah, no, exactly. I just the retractable roof dome thing to me is it's just one of those things where you're not going to have that and then it not be used most of the time, right? I mean, it's just
Right.
too tempting to close it, especially if you've got some $1 billion stadium and you've got it out by this hotel and you've got all this luxury stuff around it. I feel like it's going to draw a higher tax bracket type fan in person, right? To get tickets, and those people want the luxury and they want the climate control and they want all of the extras, right? They don't want to sit out in the freezing cold. So,
I'm with you though. I'm worried about like Arrowhead kind of missing the nostalgia of it being the pastime stadium, right? Like where the record for the loudest stadium was set. The atmosphere of tailgating and everything. I mean, like it's funny because these renderings they show like little puffs of smoke in the crowd, like they're still tailgating and everything. But there's just something about that area, right? That's just super, like I said, nostalgic. And I don't know. I'm on the fence about it being renovated or a new spot altogether. I mean, ultimately, I feel like I would like to see Arrowhead renovated with upgrades, and if that means kind of adding more boxes and whatever. It is what it is. Like I said, my dog's not too big in this fight, so if they move, I'm not too concerned about it. But just going to Arrowhead, experiencing that whole idea, it's something. If you haven't ever been there and you're a Chiefs fan, it's something to really experience. I'm kind of worried that they might miss out on that, as Nick said, kind of upgrading the stadium to where it looks like a giant hotel, and it's not necessarily that football experience that you get going to Arrowhead the way it is now. As we've been talking, the weather. I mean, do you guys think that Dolphins game would have been like a completely different game had there not been any weather considerations, right? I'm with Scott. That roof is probably closed for that game just because the weather was so ridiculously closed for health concerns. I mean, that was the topic of the news when I was living there. Like everybody was talking about, this is what you can do to stay warm, make sure to layer, take cardboard to stand on, right? Like, I mean, it's such a huge factor that do you really want to lose that? And to me, it's such a big part of football is January football, experiencing that cold weather and having teams like Miami come in and see if they can compete. And it is such a factor that it shows year in and year out that warm weather teams can't. And that's why I'm on the fence. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not going to stop it. Can't do anything about it. So I'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
right. I mean, I'll go watch them, and I'm still going to go to the games, obviously. So
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm pro Arrowhead renovation and staying there. So, but you know,
It ain't going to happen.
something changes. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I mean, the Kansas people got to pass this thing, right? And then you got. I mean, there's more to it than I just think like, oh, here's free stadium. Like, there will be other places that will put together deals or whatever. And I feel like if it's close on 2 deals, if Missouri or Jackson County or a different county in the state of Missouri comes to them with a similar offer, I feel like maybe you build a new stadium at the current place, right? Or you build on top of Arrowhead, or you come up with something like that. I feel like if it's close, that Clark Hunt and the rest of the family is going to want to stay in their dad's building out there. So,
Yeah.
Deal, but Jackson County should be sweating more than they were a couple days ago after thinking, oh, well, we're going to get them, and these rich billionaires are going to have to come and give us a better offer. And like, here's the deal. All the people that were barking and chirping about not giving the billionaires the free money for their stadiums and their place of business. I mean, if you don't, somebody will. And so that's just the name of the game. And whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, or the way things are versus the way things should be, you can have that argument all day. But the fact of the matter is I mean, someone's going to give them the money, right? Someone's going to give them the stadium. And this is going to save Clark Hunt about what? I think he was going to put about $300 million of his own money or something like that for renovations on the old Arrowhead. New stadium for free, or pay $300 million to renovate my old stadium. It's a lot better deal if they can get it done. So
Yeah.
No brainer.
Doug's comment here, he says, football and country club atmosphere made the Cowboys soft, I think. You think about like the
Maybe.
dynasties, right? There, I mean, the Patriots in Foxborough, going to Foxborough in the winter was the thing that was talked about for years. Is that overblown, or do you think that, I mean, does this give too much of a level playing field for the other teams that are coming in, especially like for playoffs and stuff?
Well, I remember a while ago when they were considering like New York for a site for the Super Bowl. They were talking about like, do we really want a Super Bowl in New York in February? Like the average temperature is like 20 degrees or something like that. And I can't remember what happened, but I mean, I think ultimately New York got passed on it, or like there was like
New York, they got a Super Bowl. I mean, New York's New York, though, right?
Right.
I mean,
right. It's New York. I mean, they have the population and the money to bring it, right? But like, it's just such a. I mean, when there's considerations like that being made just because of weather, like, yeah, I think it is that big of a factor to consider.
Right. Definitely is. So something to keep an eye on, see what they do there. I think that's about it for tonight. I think we hit all the topics. So sorry for the delay. And
New York isn't New York.
yeah. Buffalo in there. Talk about an open air stadium. I mean, you figure if anybody should have a closed stadium, it should be them. But kudos them if they do this open air thing. I mean, the brave the elements. I mean, like I said, I'm for a new stadium. It's not like I'm one of these people that's just gonna sit there and just piss and moan if they don't play at Arrowhead forever. But I just do not want a retractable roof or a dome. It's like I said, it's too tempting to be closed, right? And it's too hot outside, or it's raining, or it's this, or it's cold.
Oh, it's raining out. Like, come on.
Right. Yeah, it's called a poncho, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, football's meant to be played in the elements. That's all there is.
You don't need your pinky toe as a fan. Like, just get out there. Come on, you're fine.
Right. The gridiron. It's played on a gridiron. It's not played on. I don't know what you would call the opposite of a gridiron or what that is, but to me, that's a dome. That's carpet inside a dome or a closed stadium. So definitely appreciate everybody for joining us. Sorry again for the delay and getting started. My Apple phone here is I got the day off tomorrow, and it looks like that's what I'm going to get done doing is going to the phone store. Lucky me. Oh boy.
Scott's going to get a new Android.
Yeah. Just think about they get you because
That's how they get you.
they've got all the accessories and all the stuff that you got, right? It's not like just getting a new phone. It's like, wow, I got to get new this and I got to get new this, and none of my chargers are going to work. And it's anyway. Appreciate everybody for joining.
Seems like everything's going to USB-C now, so you're in good luck there.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We sure appreciate it. We'll be back next week. Schedule release will be out by next week.
I don't know.
I think I saw that it was coming. It's usually not too far after the draft. Here I am unprepared talking about something that I should have known when it was going to happen, but I didn't. But I love schedule release. We talk about this every year. Like, I don't know why I geek out so much on the schedule release, but we'll be back next week. I'm sure there'll be things to talk about. Thank you again to everybody in the chat, everybody who watched. Please like and subscribe. And until next time,
Let's go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.